Simon here, Senior Pastor at Upton Vale. It's a joy to be able to spend time studying the Bible together, and we pray you are challenged and transformed by God's message to you today. My prayer is that you are blessed by this whilst plugged into a local church, whether with us or in your community, where you're growing in your walk with Jesus. If you're in our area but not part of Upton Vale, then head over to uptonvale.org.uk for more information, or find us on all the usual social media channels. We'd love to connect with you. Anyway, let's see what God has to say to us today.
Philippians chapter 1, verses 18 to 26. Yes, and I am really going to celebrate, because I know that this will result in my rescue. Through your power and the support of the Spirit of Messiah Jesus, I am waiting eagerly and full of hope, because nothing is going to put me to shame. I am going to be bold and outspoken, now and as always, and the Messiah is going to gain a great reputation through my body, whether in life or in death. You can see me through me to live, means the Messiah to die, means to make a profit. If it is to be living in the flesh, that means fruitful work for me. Actually, I don't know which I would choose. I pulled both ways at once. I would really love to leave all this and be with the Messiah, because that would be far better. But staying on here in the flesh is more vital for your sake. Since I've been convinced of this, I know that I will remain here and stay alongside all of you to help you advance and rejoice in your faith, so that your pride you take in Messiah Jesus may overflow because of me when I come to visit you once again.
Amazing. Thank you, Claire. Well done. That was a long one today. So we're going to be looking at it very briefly this morning, but come along later on tonight to go deeper. But I've got a bit of a quiz question to begin. So 5 words are going to appear on the screen. And can you tell me what they mean? Any ideas? Thank you. Yes, so all of those words are thank you in different languages from around the world. And usually when we learn a language, we might learn hello, goodbye, and then please and thank you tend to be the words that we learn next, quickly learned by the word sorry, so that we can apologise for getting it wrong. And before the days of texts and phone calls and emails, we used to send something called a letter to each other using paper and pen. And I remember as a child, when it was Christmas time, my mum would say, as we were unwrapping the presents, we need to make a list of who has brought what, so that when you write your thank you letters, you can thank the right person for the right thing. And so between Christmas and New Year, it's one of those traditions that's, one of those not fun traditions, but you just do it. We'd sit down and write our thank you letters to our distant relatives. And one year, we even got a thank you card back from one of these elderly relatives, thanking us for our thank you cards to them. At which point you think, at what point does this end? Do I now need to thank you for thanking me for thanking you in the first place? Where on earth do we draw the line? But thank yous are really important, aren't they? And the reason why I'm talking about thank you letters is because the book of Philippians is a thank you letter. It's a letter from Paul to the church in Philippi. And he is saying thank you to the church for what they have done. So let's just recap very briefly about who Paul was, because some of us will know, some of us might not know. So Paul was originally called Saul, and he was a Roman citizen, and he didn't like Christians at that point. He would go around trying to kill Christian people, a not particularly pleasant guy. And then he had an encounter with Jesus. He met Jesus and he had a bright light, and Jesus spoke to him on the road to Damascus. And Saul had this massive conversion, and he changed his name to Paul. Now, what he then did was he was a tent maker, so that's how he made his income. But he was also a missionary, which meant he went on telling people about Jesus. He also then wrote letters to them, a lot of them that we have in the Bible, and then eventually he died because of his faith. So when Paul is writing this letter, he is in prison, and he was arrested because he was telling people about Jesus, which did not please the Roman people. And they were so fed up that they thought, you know what, we're going to put this guy in prison, because surely when he's in prison, he can't tell people about Jesus. But he surely did through letters, and he even told the prison guards about Jesus. So he was writing a letter to the church in Philippi. And if we have a look on this map, we can see where Philippi is, indicated by the bright red arrows. So at the moment, it is in like eastern Greece, around North Macedonia, that area. And it was a really key place for Paul to go to, because Philippi was a trade route, which meant people went from west to east and east to west really easily. They had to pass through the town of Philippi. And previously, the gospel had been on the right-hand side, so had been over in the east. And they wanted to spread it further west. So Paul thought, if I go to Philippi, that's going to help the message of Jesus spread into the Western world. So that is what he did. It was a rich city, and it had not even a synagogue. So Paul had to figure out, how on earth am I going to tell these people about Jesus? And we read in Acts 16 that he meets a rich lady called Lydia, and through telling her about Jesus, both her and her entire household come to believe in Jesus. And from that conversation with Lydia and her household, the first church in Europe was born, which is amazing. He didn't know that conversation with that one woman was going to lead to that. But he chatted to this one woman, her and her household became Christians, and that was the first church in Western Europe, called Philippi. Now, after he had left Philippi, he then continued his travels. But the church in Philippi was so appreciative that they continued to pray for Paul, and they continued to send him money. And so his letter is thanking them for that. But he's also thanking them because he wants to tell them that I'm okay. I might be in prison, but I am okay. Now, 3 years ago, when I first came to UV, actually there was no one here at all except a tripod in the middle because it was still COVID days. But after the service, we went down into the hall and I met with the trustees and their families. And one of them was Laura, who was at the back. And Laura, your son Reuben created something. Can you remember what he created for me, Laura? It was the Lego prison, okay? So for me, Reuben created a Lego prison, not because I'd been bad, but because he didn't want me to leave. But Paul was in a prison because he was sharing about his faith with other people. And I can confirm that UV has not felt like a prison to me, everybody. But even in prison, Paul was telling people about Jesus. He was so passionate about his faith that even when he was facing persecution, he was not going to stop telling people. But when we get to the passage in chapter 1, Paul is facing some uncertainty, because while he's in prison, he doesn't quite know how things are going to pan out. It was quite possible that the Romans were going to kill him because they were still killing Christians, but it was quite possible that they might release him, and so he had no idea. Now, all of us face uncertainty, don't we? Whether it's what a test result will show, or what secondary school or GCSEs or A-levels to choose, maybe where that money is going to come from that bill, or whether to take a coat on a day like today when it's blustery. But there are also things that we are certain about, that the sun will rise from the east, that brown cows do not produce chocolate milk, sadly, okay? we also know that Jesus will return. Now, at this point, I need 3 volunteers who are safe to use a pair of scissors. Okay? So, yeah, Oliver and Yeva. Yeah, Lucy, do you want to come up? Excellent. So, you will need a bit of paper. So if you take a bit of paper each. Gosh, we're doing this live as well, aren't we? Right. Pair of scissors for you, pair of scissors for you, and one for you. And you got a bit of paper? Excellent. Right, if you just go and stand over there. So if you go over there as well. So what your challenge is, while I carry on speaking, is you need to make a hole in your bit of paper that I can go through, okay? So you're like a big hoop. You need to create a hole out of your bit of paper so that I can fit through it. Okay? Easy. Great. So while they're doing that, we're going to carry on, because Paul was uncertain about his future. Would it look like release or would it look like death? But Paul was certain that God was with him, that God had a plan and a purpose for him, and that he was in God's hands. And in prison, Paul says these words. Paul says that he is waiting eagerly and full of hope, because nothing is going to put me to shame. I'm going to be bold and outspoken now, as always, and the Messiah is going to gain a great reputation through my body, whether in life or in death. Even in prison, Paul was being bold and speaking out. Why? Because he was certain of Jesus. He was certain and full of hope because of God. And not just a hope that says, oh, I hope it'll be okay, or I hope it doesn't rain today. It was a certain hope that we have because of Jesus. Paul just had to remain faithful, continue to trust Jesus, because God is good. He had to keep his eye on the finish line, just like a runner. And in 2 other places, Paul writes these words. So Paul trusts from 1 Philippians 6 that that's God, who began a good work in you, so that's the Philippians and himself and us, will carry it on until the day of Jesus. And Romans 8:28, he also says, in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Which is easy to believe and say when things are going well, but actually Paul had a pretty rough deal, so it's amazing that he can say things like that. And even in prison, he was telling people about Jesus. He was seeing how even in the rubbish times, that God can work for his good. Right, how are we getting on? You've finished. Brilliant. Right, do you want to see if that's going to go over me? Come on then. Just a little bit. Okay, a tiny bit. It's over my head. Yeah, that's a start. Okay, Lucy, how are we getting on? Okay. Brilliant. It's not quite a crown, is it? Okay, well, it is over my head. Oliver is making a snake. There are going to be no animals today that I know of. Right, Oliver, do you want to hold it up? Let's have a look. How far is that going to go? Is that even going to go over my head? Can you try it? Go on then, rip it off. Kind of. Kind of. It's a crown. It is a crown now. It is a crown. Right, we're going to ridiculous while we keep this on for a minute. Okay, now, I am certain that this is possible. Do you think it's possible? Why? Why do you think it's possible? Oh, no, it's possible with an A4 bit of paper. It is possible. So I am certain that it is possible, but you might be uncertain about how it is possible. So can you confirm that that was one A4 bit of paper? That is one A4 bit of paper. Yeah? That's the same bit of paper that you had. Yeah? Okay. And I have cut, haven't I, some lines on that bit of paper. Now, can you take that end bit? Yeah, that's it. And hopefully, out of that one A4 bit of paper, we have created a massive hole that we can fit through you. Let's get all the way down. Excellent. Ooh. Can it fit through you? Ooh. Put your arms down. Is it going to fit through Oliver? Can it fit Ken? Let's find out. Ken, come on down, Ken. Can it fit Ken? Brilliant. Do we think it's going to fit Ken? Fingers crossed. I think it actually will. Whoa. Yay! Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken. You're thin, Ken. There you go. You made it. You made it. Brilliant. Right, you can have something that's not thin. There we go. Excellent. Can we give these guys a round of applause? Thank you. Brilliant. A bit of a silly illustration, but it illustrates the point that sometimes we think something is not possible, or we are uncertain how something is going to unfold. But with God, we can be certain that he is going to lead us through. It might not be easy or how we expect, but God is good and faithful and will lead us through. The second thing that Paul talks about is choices. And I've got Kaylee and Nisha who are going to lead us in something that we're all going to get involved in. But I don't think it involves touching our toes, does it? Nope. So we're going to find out what choices make in the room.
Yeah, so some of you might have played Would You Rather before. That's what we're going to do today. Let's do a little practice. So this is how it's going to work. This one's not on the slide, but for example, would you rather have Marmite or jam on your crumpets? Seeing as we had that this morning. So what we're going to do is get you to put your hand up for which one you would prefer. So put your hand up if you'd rather have Marmite. Oh, wow, quite a few. Really? Who would rather have jam? Yeah, it's pretty split, looks like. So, okay, so it looks like you've all got the hang of it. So the next one's on the board. Kaylee, do you want to read it out?
Would you rather only eat chocolate or only eat crisps? So, hands up for chocolate. Oh, wow.
And hands up for crisps. Oh, yeah.
It's quite split.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I think some people might have put their hand up for both there. Yeah, okay. Next one. Would you rather be invisible or able to fly? So hands up for invisible. Hands up for able to fly. Yeah, fly takes the lead. Yeah. What would you rather do, Kaylee?
Definitely fly.
Yeah, same. I would definitely want to fly. Okay, next one.
Would you rather have a car that can only fly or a car that can go underwater? What do you think, Nisha?
I think I'd rather be able to go underwater with my car, yeah.
Shall we see?
Right, so put your hand up if you'd rather have a car that can fly. And put your hand up if you'd rather have a car that can go underwater. Oh, it looks like more people would want to fly again.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to fly today. Okay, next one.
Would you rather be a superhero or a cartoon character?
Yeah. It depends on what character you want to be, doesn't it? Okay, put your hand up if you'd rather be a superhero. Put your hand up if you'd rather be a cartoon character. Yeah, more people want to be a superhero, I think.
I think it's the superpowers.
Yeah. We'll have a lot of flying superheroes. Okay. this one's an interesting one. So would you rather have telekinesis, which is where you can move things with your mind? So like in Matilda, she can move things by just looking at them. Or would you rather have telepathy and be able to read people's minds? So, a bit of a dangerous choice. Okay. Would you rather have telekinesis? Put your hand up. I would rather be able to move things.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
I'm quite lazy. I would rather just be able to look at something and just bring it to me. Okay. Or put your hand up if you'd rather have telepathy. Yeah. It's pretty 50-50. Yeah. Would you rather have telepathy, Kaylee?
I think I'd prefer telekinesis.
Yeah, same.
Don't think I want to know everyone's thoughts. That's a lot of thoughts. If I was here with everyone's thoughts right now, that's a lot.
A lot to take in. Okay. Would you rather find true love today or win the lottery next year? Cause some conflict.
This is going to be an interesting one.
Okay. Put your hands up if you'd rather find true love today.
Not very many.
Or would you rather win the lottery next year? Yeah. I guess some people have already found true love. Yeah. Okay. Next one.
Would you rather have a personal maid or a personal chef? What do you think?
Okay, put your hand up for maid. Put your hand up for chef. Yeah, chef. If you're a mum, then you do both, or a dad. Anyway, okay, last one. Would you rather cuddle a baby polar bear? That's not even an option. Baby koala or a baby panda? Ooh. Okay, so put your hand up for panda. Put your hand up for koala. Yeah, it's 50-50. What would you?
I think a koala. I think
I'd rather
the
panda.
pandas could crush me. Is my
Well, if it's a baby, I mean those pictures they're not babies, but if it's a little baby, I feel like pandas are quite playful, you know. Okay, that's the end.
Amazing. Thank you, girls. Great. Okay, so Paul was in a situation that was uncertain, but with a certain God. But in that place, he still faced a dilemma and a choice. And you might have picked it up in verses 21 to 24. He says this, "You see, for me to live means the Messiah, but to die means to make a profit. If it's to be living on in the flesh, that means fruitful work for me. But actually, I don't know which one I would choose. You see, I am pulled both ways at once. I'd really love to leave all this and be with the Messiah, that's Jesus, because that would be far better. But staying on here on earth in the flesh is more vital for your sake." I love these verses because Paul is outwardly processing what is going on in his mind. And I think if we were sat next to him while he was writing this letter, we would see the cogs turning and the steam coming out of his ears. Because both options were good. I don't know whether you noticed, but in that would you rather, we had good options every time. We didn't do any disgusting ones like would you rather eat vomit or sewage, okay, that you wouldn't want either. We chose things that were good things, okay? Get that thought out your head, okay? Because that's grim. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my mind. Paul was being pulled in two ways, okay? But both ways were because he loved Jesus, because Jesus was his life. And it was a bit like a tug of war. He was pulled in two different directions. And at this point, I need 8 people to come and help me very quickly. So come on, even if you've been before, just put your hand, just come forwards. Come forwards. Excellent. This is your last chance to help me with something. You all want the sweets now as well, don't you? That's the problem. Oh, no. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, wow, 9, 10, 11. Brilliant. Excellent. I'd love to think you just want to help me, but I think the Haribo might have something to do with it. Okay, can you all stand behind the rope that's on the floor, please? Okie doke. Oh, you're all so obedient. Look, okay. So this is my tug-of-war rope. At some point, it's going to become a banister in my house, but it's never quite got that far. So this is why I have a big rope. And Ayla, can you hold this one that says to live? Oliver, can you hold the one that end which says to die? Excellent. Okay. And can the rest of you, can you pick up the rope in front of you? Excellent. So Paul was stuck in a bit of a dilemma. He was being pulled in lots of different directions. So first of all, he was pulled towards to live. So if you pull it that way, that's it. Excellent. No, it's all right. Jake, you can go too. It's all right. You can go too. Excellent. So he was pulled over the option to live. Can you hold that one for me now? Because he wanted to, if you have the next slide, please, to share about Jesus with other people. So he wanted to carry on living because he wanted to share Jesus with other people. But at the same time, he was pulled in the other direction towards dying. Because if he died, he would be with Jesus in person. And arguably being with Jesus in person was the best thing ever. But then he was like, oh, maybe I want to keep on living. Because if he kept on living, Poppy, can you hold that one? He could carry on encouraging the churches, these churches that are being created, and he could carry on writing these letters and being this big encouragement and visiting those churches. But then he was like, well, maybe I want to die. Because he would be, someone over this side, Jake, can you hold it? He would be in heaven with Jesus, which would be the best place to be, where there's no more pain and no more suffering. But then he was like, well, maybe I want to keep on living, actually. But then he thought about it and thought, but if I'm living, there's going to be possible further physical pain and sacrifice. Paul, if you haven't read about the life of Paul, he was like shipwrecked and flogged and so many other things, and so, like in prison, and it's incredible the faith that he lived and the things that he experienced. So living, he possibly was going to keep on encountering those things. And then he thought, well, maybe I want to die, so he was pulled in this direction. Because if he died, Sasha, can you hold that on high for me? If he died and went to be with Jesus in heaven, there would be no more pain and suffering. So Paul was torn between, do I want to live for Jesus, or do I want to die and be with Jesus? Do I want to stay so I can encourage the churches, but I really want to be in heaven where there's no more pain and no more, and I can be in the best place ever? That was the dilemma that he was facing, and this kind of internal tug of war that he had. Can we give these guys a round of applause? Thank you. Again. That was the dilemma that he faced, but what did he choose? He was torn between two good things, and he was able to find joy in both of them. Would he rather live and remain on the earth, or would he rather die and be with Jesus? He had to decide what was best between what was best for him and what was best for the gospel. What does he decide? Well, in verses 24 to 26, it says this. This is what he decided. But staying on here in the flesh on earth is more vital for your sake. Since I've become convinced of this, I know that I will remain here and I will stay alongside all of you to help you to advance and rejoice in your faith, so that the pride you take in the Messiah Jesus may overflow because of me when I come to visit you once again. In simple terms, he decided that he needed to stay because that was more necessary for the gospel, so that he continued to encourage people and continue to tell people about Jesus. So instead of choosing death, which would have brought certainty for him, Paul chose life on earth with all its uncertainties around what it would unfold and look like. But he knew that he could do it with the certainty and the hope of God. But either way, for Paul, it was all about Jesus. Whether he lived or whether he died, it was all about pointing to Jesus. You know, if he died because of his faith, people would know that he died for his faith. If he lived and told people about Jesus, people would know who he was because he was sharing his faith. For Paul, it was all about Jesus. He knew Jesus' heart for the people, so his heart was for the people. And for the sake of the people, Paul put other people and their needs before his own. For their sake, he chose to remain